50 Curious and Little-Known Facts About World War II. The Allies used inflatable tanks and planes to deceive the Nazis about the size of their forces before the Normandy landings. The siege of Leningrad lasted approximately 1,000 days, with over 1 million people dying from hunger and cold. Hiro Onoda, a Japanese soldier, continued fighting on a Philippine island until 1974, unaware that the war had ended. The Soviets trained dogs with explosives strapped to their backs to attack Nazi tanks. The attack on Pearl Harbor lasted only 22 minutes but caused enormous damage to the U.S. Pacific Fleet. During the war, the United States manufactured a military aircraft every 63 minutes. Approximately 2,500 soldiers died each day in the Battle of Stalingrad, one of the bloodiest battles. The Fat Man bomb dropped on Nagasaki reached a speed of over 22,000 kilometers per hour upon impact. 4 million tons of bombs were dropped during the war in Europe. The Battle of Stalingrad lasted more than 200 days, making it one of the longest and bloodiest battles of the war. In Germany, soldiers who were blinded in combat formed a special battalion to assist in non-combat tasks. 10 million cluster bombs were dropped on Laos, the most bombed country per capita during the war. 40,000 women served in the Soviet armed forces as snipers, pilots, and combatants. The USS Laffey, nicknamed the ship that would not die, was attacked by more than 22 kamikazes but remained afloat. Not all kamikazes were volunteers. Many pilots were forced to participate in these suicide missions. The Americans created a bombing unit using bats equipped with explosives, but the project was abandoned. The British developed bouncing bombs to destroy German dams, leading to the famous Dam Busters raid. The British tank, Matilda II, was considered cursed, as its crew suffered accidents or deaths every time it was deployed in combat. At the end of the war, there were around 50 million displaced people across Europe. 9 out of 10 German soldiers who died in the war did so on the Eastern Front, fighting against the Soviet Union. 150 million food rations were dropped by parachute to Allied troops and civilians during the war. 10 minutes was the duration of the phone call in which Hitler ordered the invasion of Poland, starting the war. Operation Mincemeat involved deceiving the Nazis by planting a corpse with false documents to divert their attention from the landings in Sicily. A Japanese submarine launched a seaplane that bombed a forest in Oregon, the only Japanese air attack on the continental United States. German troops occupying parts of Norway during the war adopted a mainly vegetarian diet due to meat shortages. 2 weeks was the time it took for German forces to surrender after Hitler's death. The French soldiers who liberated Paris in 1944 included a large number of colonial troops from Africa and the Caribbean, although they were mostly excluded from photos. 6 minutes was the time it took for the B-29 Enola Gay to take off and drop the atomic bomb on Hiroshima. 21 million letters were sent between British soldiers and their families during the war. 1 million mines were placed by the Nazis on the French coasts to repel the Allied invasion. 27% of the Soviet population died during the war, one of the highest proportions of losses of any country. Operation Barbarossa was the largest land invasion in history, with over 3 million German soldiers invading the Soviet Union. The spy, Cicero, a Turkish butler, stole vital documents from the British embassy and sold them to the Nazis, helping Hitler plan his strategy in the Balkans. Wojciech, a brown bear adopted by Polish soldiers, helped transport ammunition in the Battle of Monte Cassino. The Middlewerk underground factory, where the Nazis built V-2 rockets using slave labor. The Battle of Kursk was the largest tank battle in history, with over 6,000 tanks involved. Operation Valkyrie was the failed attempt to assassinate Hitler by his own officers in 1944. The soldier who defused an atomic bomb. During the mission in Nagasaki, a technician of the Fat Man bomb narrowly avoided it exploding prematurely. The bridge on the River Kwai was built by prisoners of war under brutal conditions, inspiring a classic film. The Nazis attempted to kidnap Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin, at the Tehran Conference, the Nazis planned a kidnapping that was thwarted by Soviet spies. The Great Escape. In Stalag Luft III, 76 Allied prisoners of war escaped through a tunnel, but only 3 made it to freedom. The Nazi gold train is a legend that says the Nazis hid a train full of gold in Poland, but it has never been found. The USS Indianapolis, after delivering components of the atomic bomb, was sunk, and many survivors died from shark attacks. German U-boats transported spies to the US coasts, but they were captured shortly after landing. The Angel of Death was Joseph Mengele, the Nazi doctor who conducted cruel experiments on Auschwitz prisoners. The firebombing of Tokyo killed more than 100,000 civilians in a single night, more than the atomic bombs. Operation Paperclip involved the US recruiting Nazi scientists, like Wernher von Braun, for their space program after the war. Operation Tidal Wave was an Allied air raid on Romania's oil fields, essential for Nazi fuel. The Jewish Fighters. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was one of the bravest resistances against the Nazis, although it ended in massacre. The most decorated American soldier. Audie Murphy, who began his acting career after the war, won all major military medals.